Hang on. There it is. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. It said we'd been live for 17 seconds, so hopefully there was no swear words.
It's all right.
In that time. Hey, welcome back, everybody. Happy New Year.
True.
22. よろしくお願いします。
よろしくお願いします。今年もよろしくお願いします。
Hey, Hiro,
Yo.
we've got a really cool session or episode to do today.
Yeah.
But I want to talk to you. You've been around the clock a bit, man. How many shiai do you think you've done in your life?
A lot. That's why I can't really. I mean, a lot, mate. A lot.
Heaps. A lot. Heaps and heaps.
Heaps,
When was the
heaps
last
and
shiai
heaps.
that you went in? Was it a while ago or recently?
Well, a while ago, the last time, maybe 5, 6 years ago or more, I think.
Yeah. Now, here's the question. This is a segue question, right? And this is what today's episode is about. What did you do to get yourself with the mental edge? What did you do to get the mental edge over your opponents during your competitive career, man?
Mental edge?
Yeah.
What the hell are you talking about?
The mental edge. You don't know about the mental edge?
No.
You haven't heard of this?
What is it? I don't think everyone knows about it, mate.
Look, well, we're about to let the cat out of the bag and tell everybody what this is. And to do that, we have a bit of a special guest today, Hiro, as you know, as our guest probably unaware of. We've got Dr. Takuya Hayakawa coming onto the show today. Takuya-san is 37 years old and has practiced Kendo for 7 years. He has the third dan.
Yeah.
And he got his... Pardon me. Yeah, that is quick.
That's quick, mate.
He got his... That's the mental edge, you see. He got his doctorate from Keio University, or the Japan Institute of Sports Sciences. And he practiced Kendo at the University of Tennessee Kendo Club and is now based in Kanagawa, Japan. Now, this is the good bit, right? So he specializes in mental skills training, optimal practice environments, learner-centered coaching, which is all my sort of thing as well, and self-regulated learning, and uses that research to promote mental training for optimal Kendo performance. Takuya-san, or Dr. Takuya, is with us now, and we'll just bring him in. Welcome, Doctor.
Welcome, Dr. Hayakawa Sensei.
Thank you very much for your time, mate. It's great to have you. Thank you very much. So, we'll crack on. What we're talking about, as you know, Takuya-san, is getting that mental edge, right? And what I was we were hoping you could do is talk a little bit about your research and your application of your research to Kendo training.
Okay, so actually I studied Kendo when I was in US, not in Japan, so which is maybe unique. So there was a fortunate that I met my Kendo sensei at Knoxville, Tennessee. So that's the first time I officially start practicing Kendo. But I've already had many backgrounds of sports psychology and mental training. So I was thinking that, this is a good time to use that mental skill to myself. So I've used a lot of mental training strategies. So like I use goal setting, imagery, and some of the training for using the focus. So to me, the focus is maybe one of the best practice to make it sharpen my sense of Kendo or a sense of like focus. So for example, like, like how during the practice or like matches, we are wondering my mind, then oftentimes we lose focus for some reason. But using those kind of techniques is very helpful for me to stay focused so that I can do my best performance at least. So it depends on win and lose, though. It really depends on the opponent. But at least I can do my best performance or best movement during the practice and matches.
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned a couple of things there. You said goal setting and imagery. I think there'd be quite a few people who are familiar with goal setting, although we can cover that in a future episode if there's interest in it. Imagery is something I think you're going to talk about just a little bit later. But you mentioned focus and attention, right?
Yep.
And that's a really important thing to get the mental edge when you're talking about either Kendo or any other athlete for that matter. About attention and where to put your focus. Is that right?
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. So this is I've done a little bit of writing on this myself in a previous life, and I just thought I'd share this diagram up here because I think it works in really well with what you're going to be talking to us about today. This idea of attentional focus. What's this model called, Takuya?
It's called Knightfall Model. So it was
model.
developed by Dr. Knightfall come up with this model. So there are two different dimensions. One is external to internal. The other one is broad to narrow. So our attention can be categorized to one of them while we are doing Kendo. So for example, the external narrow, which is the best area for performance. Like our attention is go outside from body, then the target is very narrow. So it says reacting or executing a skill or aiming a target. So oftentimes this model is talking about the external narrow is the best attention shift for performance. Then broad external is still sort of a part of performance, but this is more like searching or looking for information from outside. Then in sports, oftentimes use this example. This area is for like football. A quarterback is looking for their teammates. So like broadly seeing, then collecting the information. That's the external broad focus. Then internal is more like something happen in your mind or something inside. So broad internal is like more like assessing or analyzing. So what happened to yourself? Like the model actually says the planning strategies or making decisions or analyzing information. So if you are in internal broad focus, you are getting collecting the information, then analyze from a lot of information. Then narrow internal is more like regulating and monitoring yourself. It's more like a little bit narrow. Then rehearsing the performance is another good example. Like maybe before the matches or practice, you were thinking like, so how you move your body or how you move your shinai or something. So that's the narrow internal situation.
So there's a bit to unpack there, right? But if we just sort of go back to the first one that you mentioned, I think was broad external, right? So we've got this sort of idea that we're looking out there in that big picture. So for example, what sort of position you are in the shiai-jo, are you up against the line or are you on the X? Those sorts of things. And I think it's fair to say if you watch a slightly less experienced shiai-sha in the shiai-jo during a competition, their potential to step out is much greater than a more experienced person, right? Because their focus isn't able to switch between what's going on out there and what's going on in here or in here, right? So that you see more experienced people, they know where they are, and their focus can be easily switched from that broad external, what's going on out there, or how much time might be left on the clock, and then switching accordingly. So you mentioned also, you talked about that broad internal, so the big picture, but in here, how we we react, and that might be, for example, noticing that just before they strike, they drop their kensen, or the certain habit that they have before they make an attack, and therefore what we do in response to that. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So then we've got the narrow external, where we zoom out of, it gets a little bit zooming in on what's going on out there. So that might be your strategy, for example, to strike the banakote when the person dips just before they strike, or focusing on their timing or something like that. And then finally, that narrow internal, which is what we're going to be talking about a little bit more later, I think, is about how we can calm those nerves and regulate how we feel. If we get a little bit too nervous, how can we shift appropriately into the right zone? Is that a fair summary, Doctor?
Yeah. That's perfect.
So my question for you is so we've got these different quadrants, right? So you can be focused on what's going on in front of you, like we talked about the time on the clock, or where I am in the shiai-jo, that broad external, zooming out on the big picture. What happens when we need to start focusing in that moment on what the opponent's doing? For example, dipping their kensen before they execute a strike. How do we shift? And what's the problem if we get stuck in one of these areas?
Okay, so start speaking of problem. So we kind of know, so external narrow is the best moment to stay focused, but for some reason, goes back. Sometimes really that I'm gonna this attention immediate shift narrow, or sometimes
Takuya, I think we've got sorry, mate, we've got a little bit of a scratchy connection for you in the last, a little bit choppy. Can you try again?
Beginning?
No, it's not going to work. Can you log out and log back in, mate, with the same link, and we'll see if that can fix it up. Cool. This is interesting stuff, man. What have you done? What have you done in the past, like in your own training, if you're training somebody else or something like how did you get people to focus on what they are supposed to focus on?
It's pretty. I really didn't. Well, he's back.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
There you go.
Carry on, Hiro. So what do you do to get people shifting across?
Well, I really never trained people like that, but I can kind of like broad external. You have to position yourself in shiai, for example. You have to position yourself for your advantage, right? So there was a time when I was a kid, you really have to have not dark, but you don't want to have sunshine coming in, because and then you can't really see your opponent, right? But that was happening when I was doing this shiai. So I had to make sure I am standing in front of the sunshine coming through. So I don't have to look at directly, but they are looking at directly. My opponent is, so they can't see me technically. So it's that kind of thing. I was thinking about that when you talk about broad external.
So that's a really good example of acknowledging what's going on in the environment out there, and what your strategy should be. So it's almost a bit of an external narrow, a big picture out there, but sort of zooming in on what am I going to do to get that edge, and that's a strategic thing. At the same time of knowing where you are in the shiai-jo and looking at how that sunshine, that glare, might impact his decisions, or what sort of waza he's going to do, or where does he even notice that he's got the sun in his eyes now, right? Yeah.
That shouldn't happen, but it did. So probably you have to think about that kind of stuff as well.
Absolutely. Do you both? Question for both of you: do you, what do you see typically in a Kendo training? You know, because there'll be a lot of coaches out there or sensei that have an awareness of this, maybe not to the level of the the depth of the literature and all that sort of the research, but knowing to get somebody ready for a shiai or get them really sort of prepared for that mental edge. There's things that we do in a regular training, right? So what have you guys seen, Takuya, Hiro, that people are doing out there to get their athletes ready for a focused sort of or preparation with the mental edge?
I think typically, not all of them. Oftentimes, people wonder they got a lot of ideas or information. Like sometimes your sensei says maybe 3 or 4 things, or even sometimes 5, or like you should do this, or what if this happen, if this situation happen, you should do like this, or another situation you should do like this. So before the matches, the Kenshis might have a lot of information, so they got start already wondering, so they were not get ready for shiai or even practice. So that case, this is not a good case for internal growth. So that situation is maybe wondering. So to make it sharpen or to get into the mental edge, the Kenshis need to decide maybe one thing you should really pay attention to or really focus on it, so that they can shift to external focus. Like it's gonna be, it can be focusing on yourself, like I should do this, or I should focus on this technique, or I should focus on this part of my body so that I can move smoothly or something. So find out something to pay attention to do your best performance.
For sure. And that's a case of like being deliberate, being purposeful on what you're going to work on today, right? Which is a theme that we talk about quite a lot on this show, is being deliberate about what we're talking about rather than leaving it to chance. Hiro, I know, being your student for many years ago, kakari geko was a big part of what we used to do, and I imagine you still sort of, where you get the opportunity, get your students to do that as well. When you think about the conversation we're having at the moment, do you think that the kakari geko training is helpful in getting people sort of on autopilot so they can execute techniques without thinking about them too much, so that they can focus on the broader external stuff or sort of the strategic stuff or anything like that?
I think it's kakari geko is a practical practice, like as you say, autopilot. You just go when you need to, right? So it is really great training method, and I think it's mental preparation as well. If you do a lot of kakari geko, and you will think like, oh, you feel confident. And I did a lot of kakari geko, I can't, I don't think I'm going to lose that easily, kind of thing. That as well too, mental preparation. And I don't know about adult practitioners, does it work for equally to adult practitioners? I don't really know about that, because kakari geko is probably for younger people. My father did kakari geko against Miyazaki-sensei, because Miyazaki-sensei made him do that when he was about 60. And my father was going, I don't think I should be doing that. Maybe a different reason, but I
mean, there'd be, I'm sure, if you've got comments out there about what age people should be doing kakari geko to, or if you are over, what was it, 60? If you're over the age of 60 and still doing kakari geko, let us know down in the comments below. But you're absolutely right, Hiro. Like the effect or the outcome of doing lots of kakari geko before a big event, you're absolutely right, man, in terms of the confidence that you can take away from that. and knowing that you've worked hard. And that's the thing, confidence is earned, right? You don't just you don't just turn up and go, oh, I can do this. That's more ego than it is confidence. So confidence is earned through Kagari especially, right? Moving forward, like, because what we're talking about is the implications of focusing on certain things during the competition, during the shiai itself, leading up to it, what you can do to practice. I think it's one thing that we can sort of really unpack here. A couple of things we can unpack is, how do we do this? How do we make ourselves ready and give ourselves some mental edge, or prepare ourselves to have the mental edge with this sort of framework in mind, right? And as we mentioned before, Takuya is going to talk to us about some imagery as well. But before we jump into that, there's just a couple of slides that I think could be quite helpful, because we were talking about Kakari building confidence. I'll see if I can make these slides available on a Google in a Google folder for viewers if they want to have a look at these. But this first one here is a focus plan, right? And this is what I've used for my own competition experience at the last 6 world champs, and I start to use it now with my athletes in the New Zealand team as coach as well. But simply going through and planning deliberately about what scenario or situation might arise to take your focus and leave it stuck in the wrong area, right? Leave it stuck on the external broad when we really need to be focusing on the on more narrow things, or vice versa, getting stuck on how I feel, the nerves, and being very narrow and internal, and ignoring whereabouts we're standing in the shiai-jo, or missing cues from our opponents dipping their kenten before they strike. So what this requires is for a coach and an athlete, or just the athlete, him or herself, to go through and understand when those thoughts and feelings arise during the day, maybe the day before, the week before, the morning of the competition, and in between shiai, because sometimes, especially if you're doing well in a shiai, the event can go the whole day, right? You do your first fight at 10 o'clock in the morning, and you're not back on the floor until 12, and then again at 1:30, and so on, right? So what are the moments in time, and how can we sort of plan for those, right? And really unpack what the description is of how we should be feeling, or how we want to be feeling. And the key thing here for me, in my experience, in the readings that I've done of the sports psychology research, is those trigger words, or those cue words, right? And they're so important when you think about the impact, because we don't want to have to try and remember this whole form that we fill out. It's very handy to have this tucked in, a piece of paper tucked into your nafura, your zekkan, so you can read it during the day. But getting used to this isn't a one thing. This isn't a one-time thing. This is a case of doing the planning long before the event comes up, and thinking really purposefully about what it is that you're feeling and how you're going to get through it. So strong and confident, or something along those lines, some sort of keyword that helps you switch out of the wrong attentional focus, or the quadrant. Yeah, so we might be broad external, but now it's time for us to be more internal and start planning strategy about who we're fighting. And those moments can be addressed when we start to look at how we might be feeling, and recognizing when we're stuck. That sort of makes sense. The other thing that I thought would be helpful here is the refocus plan. And this is exactly what I've used in the past. So the previous one was about the moments during the day that we might need to focus or shift our attention. This one is a lot more sort of in action. And I found this so important, so helpful, especially in moments where I lost an ippon early in the match. So these are coming from real life examples, right? Or getting a bad call from the shimpan. How many of us have had that happen, right? Or feeling overly nervous before you go into the shiai-jo, even while you're still in the shiai-jo. And so the idea is that we use those trigger words or phrases to get us back into the flow and getting us focusing in the right area rather than, oh, I got a really bad call from the shimpan. Oh, this is terrible. Oh, what do I do? Nihonme. And as soon as that the shimpan calls Nihonme and we're back on, if we're still stuck thinking about what a prick the shimpan is for giving that man when clearly it was my debana kote.
Where's the B button?
Being able to shift back into the quadrant or to the area that we know we need to be, and that's focusing on what the other person's doing, or how much time is left on the clock, or what their strategy is and what we need to do. We're constantly moving around that graph, and if we can use these trigger words to bring us back into line and brush off, as I've used it there, brush it off and move forward, it makes a massive difference to where we put our attention, and therefore maintaining the mental edge. Would you agree with that, Doctor?
Oh, sure, totally. I mean, the focus plan is very helpful to stuck on what you need to do. So, like your example is perfect. Like, so when you get the ippon, oftentimes, oh, I got an ippon, or what should I do, or even in the team match, so I have to think about how many points I have to keep, or I have to take it back, or something. So start wondering, then a lot of thoughts going around in your mind, so which is not good for shobu situation. So you have to quickly go back to the best focus state, so that focus plan or focus key is very helpful. The reason why is we pay attention something go wrong way. So the one thing is paying attention to outside inappropriate things. Like one thing is if you in the team match, for example. So if you are chicken, then the match is 0-2 behind. That situation is definitely the crisis for your team. Like we have to at least win, or we have to at least get ippon, or even make it tie or something. But that is not a good way to stay focused on yourself. That
Right.
you're thinking about something outside your things. So that is that also makes a big pressure for you. So if you think something inappropriate thing or outside things, that's called self presentation situation. So you have to bring it back your attention to yourself. But when you in the under pressure, another things happen. Like not sure if you have any experiences that you have already get some automatized skills, but once you pay conscious how you move your body, for example, you are already quite enough to automatize your kote kaishimen, but suddenly you pay attention, wait, how I move my how I move my shinai, or how I move my wrist or something, then your movement gets clumsy.
Right.
So those kind of things also happen. So even if you pay attention to yourself, you need to still pay attention where or what kind of things you need to pay attention to yourself.
Yeah,
Uh,
and
you,
oftentimes I was like you mentioned that before, like focusing on things that are in your control rather than the things that are out of your control. And if the team is behind where you want to be in terms of points or something like that, all you can do is focus on, if it's one ippon that you need to make back, just look at getting that one ippon rather than winning by 2 points. How many times have we seen a team fight fall apart because everyone went out to get 2 points? You don't need 2 points to win a shiai. You don't need 2 points to win the world champs. You just need one. And that goes for the individuals, the Kojin-sen and the Dantai-sen, the teams as well, right? All you need is one. So if we're focusing on what it is that is in my control, as you've said, and just do the job that you're required to do. And again, I think coming back, I think you're absolutely right. And if you come back to those slides before, like you've got this opportunity pre-plan those things and put in sort of keywords or whatever it is to go, right, no, I know what I'm doing. I have to focus on what I can control or brush it off or, ipang or whatever your keyword is to get you back into that state. Dr. Takuya, we've got a couple more minutes. Would you be able to talk to us just a little bit about imagery and the benefit of image training in order to get the mental edge?
Okay, so imagery is a really good strategy, especially when you learn something new skills. So it's right now we have a lot of chances to see yourself, like taking video or like any any material. So the seeing yourself is the very good way to learn how you move your body. Then watching the video is one good example to practice your imagery. But also without you seeing watching the video, you can still practice your body movement in your mind, like closing your eyes, then feeling how you move your it's called imagery, but you might also watch yourself from outside. There is a third person and seeing your image is more good way to learn how you move your body. It's called external imagery. External imagery is learn the new movement, whereas on the other hand, external imagery is a good way to enhance learn skills. So you can have a good type of imagery, but it's a good way to help use that.
So we lost you a little bit there, mate, but the essence was external imagery. So we're looking at ourselves from the outside and looking at us perform a skill in our mind, and then internal where we're looking at it from our own point of view and playing that technique out or that scenario out from inside or from our own point of view. Yeah, absolutely. I have some resources that I think would be rather helpful for the viewers. So I'll link those in the description down below in the next wee while, where you can click through and actually get a script that I've used in the past, so you can have someone that read that out to you, or you can read it to yourself. But the thing with imagery, if I'm not wrong, is that we want to work at it. It takes a long time, and it's easy for our minds to drift away and lose focus. But it's just like Hiro's kakarigeko. You just have to keep doing it until it becomes something that's on autopilot, or something that's a lot easier. And the image that we create for ourselves is as vivid and clear as possible. But it takes time, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not need to pretty much the same here, like this over. Then we can more clearly image it.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, I think we've gone a half an hour, so we'll wrap it up. If I can just say thank you so much to Dr. Takuya Hayakawa for joining us today and for helping us to understand what it takes to get the mental edge in your Kendo. Hiro, are you a little bit more clear on what mental edge means now, mate?
We probably have to go 2 more class or lessons, maybe.
Well, you rewatch this video, and the rest of us will carry on, man.
Oh, okay. You leave me behind, right?
We'll cover it again. It's a good
You're
point.
gonna fail me.
If there's any sort of areas about the mental edge or psychological skills training, sports psychology, any questions along those things out there, let us know in the questions. In the comments section below, and we'll get our doctor mate to come back and keep sharing those things. As I said, I'll have some resources down below in the time to come that you can click through and get some tips on that as well. Please go ahead and smash that subscribe button, like button. It helps us out enormously. we would be very, very grateful. And please note that we've rebranded. It's a subtle drop. We've rebranded. We are now the Kendo Coach. I think that fits us a little bit better, Hiro. Do you think?
Yeah, bro.
I think so, man. I think we've done all right. Anyway, thank you so much, team, and we'll catch you next time. Takite, thank you very much. See you later.